Imagine a girl named Georgia, who grew up determined to be a hunter, avenging her parents' death at the hands of werewolves. She honed her archery skills, ready to take down every werewolf she could find. But then, in a twist of fate, she falls in love with a half-werewolf named Ryder. It's the ultimate contradiction. Her mission was to kill werewolves, yet now she's in love with one. What's she going to do? Stick to her hunter's vow or follow her heart? And there's so much more hidden beneath the surface. Chapter 46. Georgia perched high in the ancient oak, her keen eyes tracking the werewolf as it glided through the dense forest below. The creature moved with an otherworldly grace, its paws barely disturbing the damp leaves and twigs that carpeted the forest floor. Its silent, fluid motion only served to emphasize its lethal nature, a force of destruction that had already claimed countless lives, including those of Georgia's parents. A tempest of emotions raged within her: hatred, grief, and a cold determination that had become as much a part of her own heartbeat. With practiced precision, Georgia raised her recover bow, a weapon that had become an extension of herself over years of relentless training. The bow was more than just a tool, it was her companion in this endless hunt, her instrument of vengeance. Without hesitation, Georgia released the arrow. It flew true, a silver-tipped harbinger of death, finding its mark in the werewolf's flank. The beast didn't make a sound as the arrow pierced its thick, dark fur and burrowed deep into its flesh. Georgia knew the silver would do its work, even if her aim hadn't been fatal. With the fluid grace of a predator herself, Georgia descended from her perch, her pack already secured to her back. She didn't spare a glance for the fallen creature as she turned away, the weight of the silver knife in her pocket a comforting reassurance. Part of her hoped the werewolf still clung to life, if only so it could witness her departure, a final, crushing defeat for the monster that had taken everything from her. As she began to move away from the scene, a familiar voice broke the eerie silence of the forest. "Georgia," it croaked, sending a jolt of surprise through her battle-hardened frame. I whirled around, and there was Ryder, sprawled on the forest floor. My arrow protruded from his side, blood staining his lips. I let out an anguished scream and rushed towards him. "Georgia," he gasped again. I ran with all my might, pushing my body to its limits. The surrounding trees blurred into a green haze. Yet no matter how fast I moved, Ryder remained just out of reach. I cried out his name repeatedly, tears streaming down my face. His skin grew paler with each passing second, more blood bubbling from his lips and seeping from the wound in his side. Despite his agony, his eyes remained fixed on me, watching as I desperately tried to reach him. He continued to call my name, his voice growing weaker with each utterance. Then, he stilled, with my arrow in his body. I jerked upright in my bed. A dream. A nightmare. That's all it was. That's all it would ever be. But I cowled and stopped myself from putting out a hand and placing it ever so softly on Ryder's bare chest. His snoring should have been enough of an indication that he was very much alive. But I only released a tense breath when I felt the steady thumping of his heart beneath my palm. Then, I was clawing my way out of my bed, out of the hundreds of layers of blankets and pillows as if they were trying to suffocate me. My breaths did not come any easier when I was free, though. Nor did they when I stumbling into the hallway, blindly fumbling for a light switch, or when I fell onto my ragged couch in the living room, staring at a distant street light through the window. It was a dream, a wretched horror that my own mind had concocted, but the tears rolling down my cheeks were very real. I pressed teeth down on my clenched fist to keep the chest-shaking sobs quiet, because it could have been real. Maybe the mate bond would have been strong enough to stop me from releasing the arrow. Maybe it wouldn't have been. It could have been Milo assigned to the pack Ryder was stationed at. He wouldn't even have known that he killed the man I was supposed to be with. I thought of how my mother would fall to her knees and shriek if anything happened to my father. I thought of what it would have been like to open the door and see a somber neighbor, a trusted friend, telling me that my mother was not coming home because someone had killed her. I felt ill when I considered having to move on without a brother in my life. Distant was one thing, dead was another. That was the reality that I had created for these wolves. That was the reality that I had been proud of. The one that the other hunters had celebrated with me. Huntress, the killer of werewolves. If they hurt me, was I wrong to hurt them back? It certainly felt wrong now with the sickness churning in my... How had it come to this? Just a few years ago, I felt this way about my parents, lost and confused and wanting someone to hurt, wanting to fix all that had ever been wronged. Georgia, Ryder murmured into the dark. I sniffed hard then, dragging my fist from my mouth to wipe my tears furiously. Yes. Obviously, it wasn't fast enough. Ryder gave out a little sigh before coming to sit beside me on the couch. I fell into his open arms immediately, still needing the comfort of his warm skin under my palm and his steady heartbeat beneath my ear. Alive. He was alive. What's going on? He whispered into my hair. Nothing. Sometimes I just need a good cry at 5 in the morning. I lied. George. He pressed. Tell me what's going on. As he placed his hand on my cheek, I caught a glimpse of a fine, pink scar that wound his wrist. It was the scar he had gotten from fighting Ajax when Hades had come to deliver his verdict. All of the tears resurfaced immediately. In a very small voice, I said, I don't know if I have done the right thing. A kind person might have told me that everything would be all right in the end, because everything was always all right. Ryder just squeezed my waist. If this wolf drain is real, I don't know if there will be any right or wrong. He held me in silence until the sun began to shine over the horizon. Sometimes, he would smooth a hand down my back when a shuddering breath ripped through me. Sometimes I would stroke his hair or press into his warmth just to remind myself that he was indeed still here with me. Despite the fear and uncertainty rattling me, this was a quiet bubble of calm. I was safe here, until Ryder said, We need to go meet me.丨soon. And just like that, the lines had been drawn between us once more. Chapter 47. Ryder listened to his rock music during the drive. I played with my hair that was still wet from my shower. me.丨greeted us at the door, swinging it open before we even had a chance to knock. Though there was still tension between the three of us, showcased by me.丨's mistrustful gaze running over Ryder, we still embraced with a hug for me and a brief handshake for the men. me.丨prepped us all drinks. Despite the summer weather that was on its way, I was delighted with my white, hot chocolate chia. me.丨 always had a great taste for good drinks. Ryder settled for an iced coffee, something so simple that I thought me.丨 rolled his eyes at the request. We migrated into the living room as we had before. Any signs of the royals trailing you guys? me.丨 asked almost immediately. No, nothing. Georgia, me.丨 prompted. A simple handshake clearly didn't mean that me.丨 and Ryder were the best of pals. I haven't noticed anything in you. I agreed. But in fairness, I don't know what their cars look like or what many of their people look like, aside from the king and queen and the guy who ripped out my nails. I didn't see many people. Still, I haven't seen anything out of the norm recently. No new cars on my street. No one tailing me. Ryder's hand tightened on my knee. He didn't understand why I was putting even a pinch of doubt in me.丨's mind. But me.丨 knew me damn well. He knew the hunter side of me that survived by being wary and by noticing overturned rocks. If I had just shrugged and brushed it off, he would have known that something was off. You stayed out of the woods. Right. me.丨 pressed. I'm not an idiot. But I was. Because I had gone hiking in the woods I knew were infested with wolves. It's just that I now had a wolf at my side most of the time. Since you left last time, it's all I could think about. He confessed. For the tiniest second, I saw the weight on him. His body unable to carry the load so silently all the time. I know that the whole Cassie situation was a shock to you. But seeing you alive, then finding out that all of the royals were alive, that was insane for me to even consider. I have no real way to contact you, so all I could think about was that they had gotten to you. I don't know how you managed to get away the first time, but I am almost certain they will not let you escape if they ever find you again. In a town this size, it's only a matter of time before they find you. Hearing the genuine concern in voice, watching the way he stared at the floor instead of me, My heart ached. The mysterious and distant Milo that I had once crushed on must have spent sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, worried about me, while I would have swooned years ago. Now I was only burdened with guilt. While he had been worried about me dying again, I had been gallivanting around with Ryder, stealing away tiny moments of bliss. I'm all right. I would have come right to you if I saw something out of the ordinary, I assured. Another lie. So when do you plan on making your next move then? I blinked. What do you mean? Well, the royals are alive. Georgia, you are the best person for the job. You are the huntress after all. I mean, they've already seen your face. It would be dangerous to put someone else in the line of fire now. You know more about them than any of the rest of us. She's not going back to hunting. Ryder was tense beside me, his voice stern and cool. I understand that you might want to keep her safe as her boyfriend or whatever, but this is our life. This is what we do. A single relationship won't change that. This is what I do. I corrected it a little too sharply. As I recall, you dropped out right before the royals were to be hunted. Milo didn't falter until my anger. I knew what was going to be asked of me, and I knew that I cowed and get through it. You wanted to do it. I know that you were afraid, but I also know that you considered being asked like some kind of honor. You thought you were doing the right thing so strongly that you were willing to shoot a child. Things changed. What changed? Milo pushed back. Because she knew you when she was ready to die. Get off your high horse. Ryder's mouth parted, ready to tear Milo's head from his shoulders or ready to defend me once more. But I just dropped my head into my hands, pressing the heels of my hands into my eyes. Finally, there was a second of stillness between the men, between the two worlds that I was trying to exist in. I could never kill the kid. Killing a wolf is easy. My nightmare said otherwise now, but I pressed on. Looking at a man and killing him is hard. Impossible. Maybe not for everyone, but for me. And saying that you're not scared to die is easy when you don't have a knife to your throat. Every time I thought of being killed, I thought of all the reasons I wanted to stay. And when I managed to make it out alive, the one thing I expected to be taken care of was, forgive me for not wanting to throw my life on the line again. When I was able to lift my head again, I found Milo studying me. I couldn't read him now, but to be fair, I seldom could. Then, he gave me a slow, curt nod. All right. I understand. Like he was trying to extend an olive branch. He added, refill Ryder. Sure. We talked amicably for a while. Light conversation that wouldn't rile anyone up. But if Milo was trying to keep us calm, I figured he would have had better luck if he stopped offering Ryder refills of iced coffee. I think we were on drink for by the time we got round to the information we needed. I was hoping you would have some contact information on Cassie. I prompted. The words felt wrong in my mouth. I was deceiving a man that had carried me when I felt that no one else could. The man who did his best to make sure I came out the royal grounds. But if we didn't go to Ajax and Keiko with Cassie, would they come after Milo anyway? Cassie has Wolf, Drain, Milo said flatly. Just not going to be one for inspiring conversation. I winced. I know. But I still want to see her. It's what we do. I went to see her family sometimes she came to mind. Dawn and Armin visited all of our family members regularly. We're a family ourselves. Before the family decided to just stop paying for my parents' care. Chess in the Yukon. Milo sighed. The Yukon. I repeated. Her family doctor thought that this might be a stress-related thing. Some kind of episode. They wanted to get her out. Like far away from busy cities. He explained. The twinge in my chest was not for dear Cassie for once. It was for the family. Because I knew that feeling. Knew the panic and the crippling need to do what was right. If a doctor told me that my parents might get better if I had run through a busy mall naked, I would have done it. I wouldn't have even blinked. They would sit out there in the middle of nowhere, hoping for a change. But none would come because Wolf, Drain didn't work like that. Milo gave me the address of her new home. Ryder put it into his phone and groaned. 22 hours of driving. Yuck, and there's not flights that will cut off enough time to make them worthwhile. Her family took the advisement seriously. You don't get farther from city life than Watson Lake. Well, are you up for a road trip? I asked Ryder gently. For the sake of show. Of course. Ajax made it clear that I was not to leave his sight. If you really want to see this girl. I do. Ryder just shrugged. Then I guess I'm going with you. We were about to leave when Ryder finally declined a final coffee and bowed out to use the washroom. It was then that Milo cornered me, and I began to see that all of the olive branches were just a shitty trick to get Ryder away from me. Even just for a bathroom break. You're angry. Milo whispered as I placed our mugs in the sink. What? You're angry at Armand and Dawn. Because of your parents. That's why you don't want to go back. He could not have been further from the truth. Milo. I was left to die. I know that I accepted that. But when I was on those lands, when I was getting my nails pulled out, all I could think about was how we should have planned it better. You can't tell me that the task needed to be completed as soon as it was. You can't tell me that another 6 weeks of training and research would have hurt my chances of getting out of there. So you were angry, he repeated. I let out a little huff. Fine. Maybe a little. Here. He pressed a small piece of paper into my hand. When you get yourself a new phone. Called on. She was thrilled to hear that you're okay. I'm not saying that you need to go back to hunting werewolves. I'm just saying that a little conversation might make you feel better about the whole situation. I shoved the paper in my pocket just as Ryder reappeared. I doubted anything that anyone said would make me feel better about the disaster that I had landed myself in. You guys drive safe now, Milo said, and he pulled me in for a hug that lasted just a little bit too long. Chapter 48. I didn't know how we got here. I didn't know how we kept coming back to each other. No matter the day ahead of us or behind us. Milo's words had still been ringing in my ears when we returned to the house. The paper was burning in my pocket when Ryder popped to encounter and kissed me hard. I teased him, pulling away just before our lips met over and over. His tolerance of my game surprised me until I realized that he was prepared to return the favor. I had never been with a man like him, and, as much as I didn't want to admit it, I doubted there would ever be another that compared. He melted into me, face burrowed against the crook of my neck, chest heaving against my back. A hand stroked down my side. I arched into him and let out a low, approving hum. Teeth brushed against the side of my throat. Marking. He had told me about it. He had said that it would bind us together more strongly, that it would be a sign to others that we were connected, like a wedding ring on my finger. I would be his and every wolf would know it. His lips traced the skin there. I braced for the sensation of his teeth biting into me then. I didn't know what it would feel like, and frankly, I didn't care. I wanted it. I needed it. I closed my eyes. I was his, completely and utterly. Fuck. Ryder ground out, his body moving off mine. What am I doing? He whispered to himself. My mind was still spinning a little dizzily when I heard him do up his belt. Luckily, even in my daze, I knew I should be putting my clothes back on if he was. Standing in my lacy bra, I watched him pull his shirt over his head. His hair was sticking up at odd angles from where I had gripped it. Cheeks were flushed pink and his movements were a little sluggish, like I had taken all of the energy right out of him. A moment ago, I could have screamed his name and he would have snarled in approval. Now he couldn't even meet my eyes. What are we doing? I asked in a timid whisper. Ryder considered this for a moment. His mercury eyes stormy. Pretending. It doesn't feel like we're pretending. I managed. I knew he caught the way my hand was rubbing the center of my chest like it could soothe the ache in my heart. No, it doesn't. After a little arguing, we agreed to leave the following morning. We argued a little more when I insisted on going to see my parents before we left. I couldn't deny that I was touched when he offered to come with me. After his first and only encounter, I wouldn't have been surprised if he never wanted to mention my parents again. It must have been difficult to be a third party in that moment. Just watching a girl talk to her parents, then getting questioned in a brief moment of clarity. Still, I turned him down, because I had purchased myself a cell phone in the tiny amount of spare time I hadn't had texted Dawn. She was going to meet me at my parents' home for a brief conversation before I left. It was a risk I knew it was. I had a werewolf waiting for me at home, but I still went to meet with her, because I didn't have to pretend with her. Not really. I could snap at her, demand to know why they hadn't paid for my parents. I could cry. I could scream. I could let it all out. And I could be done with it. I decided that I would tell her I wanted out. I updated my phone number with the receptionist at the front and steeled myself for the conversation ahead. Dawn was waiting for me with my parents seated at their little table. The smell of cinnamon buns was so inviting. I almost forgot why I was angry in the first place. "Oh, Georgia," she gasped, running to embrace me. When had she ever called me by my real name? It felt odd to be anything other than Huntress to her. Though, in fairness, thinking that I had been dead for all of this time must have jarred her. At the very least, it felt nice to be in her embrace, and I melted against her a little bit. "You're looking well," she said when she finally pulled away. Fingers pinched my cheek affectionately. "You're finally putting on some real weight. Not just muscle all the time. Almost dying makes you decide to take care of yourself," I replied, then gestured to the 2 open chairs. "Should we sit?" I gave her the short version of Ryder's story while I helped my mother apply lotion to her hands and combed my dad's hair. I was captured. It was awful. I lost my fingernails. And when Keiko wanted to play good cop, I had taken the opportunity to sneak out of the bathroom window. I had run and run and run. Dawn nodded along to my words, her hand resting on top of mine for the majority of the tale. She only released me to offer me one of her legendary cinnamon buns, which I devoured. "I'm so sorry that happened to you," Dawn said. "We thought we had set you up properly in the time we had." I didn't reply, just rose to stand by my mother. I braided her beautiful hair. I could hear her complaining about how tight I made the braids, saying it wasn't good for the hair or the skin, but knowing it wouldn't come out for the day. "Why did no one pay for my parents?" I asked finally. Dawn didn't look a little bit surprised. "We got busy with the move." Well, busy is the wrong word. We were broke. It was all such a whirlwind that we didn't take proper care of our finances. We bought some new houses to help the Hunters with moving expenses, needed a new home base for us, had to get new phones for everyone, and bought a new business to be a front. The money hadn't come from the sale of the CAF yet. It was just bad timing. We would have taken care of it eventually. Bad timing that could have left my parents without proper care. There wasn't an ounce of sympathy in my voice. "Georgia, we wouldn't have let that happen." I trusted this woman with my life. She was the soothing force to the duo. She was the one who made us believe that we were all right when Armin stared down at us. When my parents were first affected by Wolf, she was the person that I sought out. She was a mother figure when I had needed one. "I won't let it happen," I responded. "Right? Well, they can come with us when you're ready to move. Vale Mount is small, but I'm sure we could find adequate care for them in not going." "Excuse me, in not leaving. This is my home. This is where I'm staying." Dawn was positively horrified. "Georgia, the king and queen are not dead. They live here, even if it is just part-time. They will come after you. God only knows what they will do to you when they get their hands on you. We will all be too far away to save you." As if they would send anyone in to save me anyway. "Then let them come for me," I spat. "My parents are here. They have a great facility and great staff members to take care of them. I did all of this for them. I will not fail them now. And when the king and queen find you, I don't care. I'm tired of running. I'm tired of not having a life, of not doing the things I want to because a wolf might be around the corner, because I have to be on a diet to stay fast enough to run through the woods, because I have to be ready to move at any time." I didn't realize at first, but I was getting louder and louder with each word. Tears were welling in my eyes. "Georgia, nothing you can say will convince me that I should go back to hunting. Putting my life on hold has not made my parents better. Dawn left me to have a few moments with my parents. I used the time to get myself together, sniffling as I scrubbed the plates from the treats that Dawn provided. How many times would I teeter on the edge of falling apart in one day? Chapter 49. Ryder wanted to forge ahead and take turns driving to see Cassie so we could get there in a day. I won out, telling him that it would be easier on both of us if we took our time. 3 days of driving so we could get to Watson Lake midday. Unless we were planning on jerking Cassie out of her family's hands, we also had to come up with a plan to get her to the king and queen. My stomach nodded at the thought, but it was nothing at the sensation that came when Ryder told me that if we were making stops, we were stopping in Valemount, the town where the werewolf hunters had relocated to. I think we can make it further than that. I protested. It's already going to be over 7 hours of driving. George, I thought you wanted to break it up a little. I do. I just didn't want to stop in a town full of werewolf hunters. I know you probably don't care, but there's amazing mountain biking in the area and I really want to go. Obviously, this isn't a vacation, but I haven't had a second where you haven't been threatened or we haven't been chasing someone, or we were considering killing each other. I just want a couple hours. That's all. I opened my mouth to protest, but I wasn't entirely sure what I was going to say. I hadn't told him about my meeting with Dawn. What was I supposed to say? That I had met with the head of the whole operation. That it was all right. There was nothing to be worried about. Was I supposed to risk Dawn's safety or his? I told myself that he would be in human form and in a touristy area. He would be fine. And if this was going to bring him a pinch of joy, I was in no position to deny it. We packed our belongings, Ryder just repacking his trusty duffel bag, and set off. The world fell away for a time. He bought me coffee when I pointed out a small CAF. I asked him about his mountain biking, and at one point, a song came on his playlist that I actually knew. I had never sung in the car with anyone before, but I let my soul pour out of my lungs then. It wasn't a song I would have listened to on my own accord, but I heard my brother blaring it through the walls of my childhood home. It was gritty and rough, and it felt good to get it out. When the song ended, there was no room for embarrassment. Ryder was looking at me with a slack jaw and wide eyes. Valemount came quickly despite the fact that Ryder always made sure I had a hot drink in my hand and therefore had to take frequent bathroom breaks. The conversation was steady and made the time pass quickly. So did the warmth of his strong hand on my thigh. I said something that made him give my leg a squeeze, and I felt like I couldn't speak for several moments after that. It was late in the evening when we checked into the hotel. It was nothing special, but when Ryder took off his t-shirt and laid on the bed, I felt like I was in the lap of luxury. A better woman might have turned away. I was not a better woman. I took my time, studying the sharp line of his jaw, the curve of his collarbones, the quiet definition of his ABS and the arrows that seemed to be drawn by his hips. Christ, was it even legal to be this attractive? Are you done? He asked, but a taunting hand swept down his stomach. No, you're mine. I will stare you as long as I please. He lifted his head from the mattress slightly, a single eyebrow raised. What did you say? You're mine. Ryder. His head tipped back at that, and I was able to catch a glimpse of his teeth capturing his lower lip. I knew the feeling. To be his. It was an incredible thing. To feel his arms around me, the press of his body, the safety and the sensuality. It was too much and not enough all at once. I want you to take your pants off and put on a condom. I demanded. Is that an order? Do you want it to be? The role reversal was delicious for me. I loved having him push me down into the mattress. Loved a hard grip on my hair and how he whispered dirty things in my ear when I was right on the edge. But watching him shudder as I slowly slid myself down his length, that was ecstasy. I didn't have the confidence to be rough and powerful like he did, but he was incredibly responsive to everything I did. When I pressed my palms to his chest to stabilize myself, then dug my nails in a little. He hissed. When I nipped at his ear, he outrightly groaned. It seemed anything I did would get a buck of the hips. A curse, or a shiver. Neither of us lasted long. We showered together. He tried to be gentle as he lathered the shampoo in my hair, but kept getting his fingers tangled in various strawberry blonde knots. I still treated him to a nice scalp massage, though, rubbing my conditioner deep in his hair. We were keeping the world at bay like we always did in quiet moments like this. But when he washed his face with the hotel-provided soap bar, it all came rushing back. He curled under the covers. I sat on the edge of the bed in my t-shirt and shorts, my back to him. My mom was a dermatologist. I said to the wall. Ryder didn't say anything, but that didn't stop me from continuing. My dad was always this chronic overachiever. He always looked his best, always talked about making good impressions. They were this powerhouse couple. Then, my mom started forgetting to buy groceries for us. My dad missed meetings with clients. My mom couldn't drive herself to work. They forgot our names. Doctors could do nothing. Tears rimmed my eyes but refused to fall. I'm sorry, George. I was so angry and so lost when I was brought in to kill werewolves. I had spent so many hours with doctors and nurses and specialists. Every test came up with no results. Then, suddenly, it was right there. I had something to take my anger, and I had a solution. I could do something so this wouldn't happen to other people. I thought another daughter wouldn't have to hold her father's hand, begging him to remember her. It sounds stupid now, but I just wanted to fix everything. I understand. But do you? My lower lip trembled and the tears finally began to spill, because I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was saving lives. I wanted these fucking creatures off the earth. I wanted to kill Ajax and Keiko. And I wanted to have the stomach to kill Clementine too. And because I cowled and kill a kid, am here, am turning in a girl who could make the sun shine during the nighttime if she wanted to because she is an angel. And I don't even know how I should feel. I don't know if I should feel soul-crushing guilt for turning her into Ajax and Keiko, or if I should wake up in the middle of the night because I'm haunted by all the wolves I've killed, because I dream that I killed you, and it makes me fucking sick every morning. Georgia. He sighed into the dark. Arms slid around my shaking form and he carefully tugged me so I was lying down beside him. We do the best we can with the information we have. I don't know what is right and what is wrong anymore. Ryder. That's life. George. I don't know if I was in the right for killing werewolf hunters that I came across. And even if I find out that I was in the wrong, there's nothing I can do about it now. I just have to trust that I am strong enough to deal with the consequences of my choices. He was so calm, so sure of himself. I spent the night wondering if I could handle the outcome. Chapter 50. I teetering and out of nightmares again that night. Sometimes they involved Ryder. Sometimes I saw little Clementine's face screaming as she watched her father fall. Sometimes I saw Hades' red eyes following me through the forest, warning me of what was to come. If only I had been smart enough to listen back then. When morning came, Ryder was still adamant about going mountain biking. The grogginess in my head wanted to argue with him, but I recalled how he spoke about it. He had been so happy to get his dream job, working with bikes. Ravine, I think is what the bike company was called. I could already imagine him out there, grinning as he took a bad crash in stride, looking so damn handsome with a helmet on, leaning against his bike in the middle of the woods. When he asked me if I wanted to join him, I just thought it would be a good distraction. I had been on a bike before and had maintained a decent level of skill over the years through the occasional ride around town. So we rented me a helmet and bike as well. 5 minutes into our ride, I was wondering how on earth Ryder could ever enjoy something like this. I thought you said this was for beginners. I complained. I was already breathing hard and had a light sheen on sweat under my shirt. Georgia, this is the skills area. This isn't even a trail yet. He chuckled, looking like the picture of ease on his rental bike. My imagination hadn't done him justice. I didn't know if it was because he was in or if he just radiated joy now. But he was incredibly handsome. The stormy eyes no longer looked so tortured. The broad shoulders didn't look so tight anymore. He was at home here, confident and comfortable in a way I could never be. I rolled through a strange, slanted turn, A berm, apparently. And when I looked back at Ryder for approval, he was grinning so broadly that I just wanted to bike until my legs gave out. So that's what I did. Obviously, mountain biking was not what I thought it would be. Long gone were my memories of serene sidewalk pedals. I thought the climb up the access road to the actual trails would be the hard part. Cardio was something of a strong suit for me, but I definitely preferred the sprints to the long grinds. And this was a long grind. It felt like the trailhead was getting further and further, not closer. With every pedal stroke, Ryder kept calling back to me, checking in on me as we ascended. I would wheeze an answer, only impressed that he could hold a conversation while my lungs felt like they were constricting. But I would keep going. I would go as long as my body allowed me, because he was talking and he was happy. And if my legs burned and my eyes watered when the wind blew, so be it. I was foolish enough to be thankful when we reached the trail of choice. It was a little green trail, which was apparently a good thing. I didn't really care all that much. I was just happy to let gravity do the work for me on the way down. I knew the woods, I knew roots and creeks and loam. If I could run over this stuff, I was sure that I could bike over it. I was wrong. Gravity helped get the bike going, and it kept the bike going, and it was getting faster. When I pulled on the brakes that Ryder had shown me earlier, I pulled so hard that I almost went over the bars. In a panic, I stomped my feet into the earth and stood for a moment, baffled by how complex this simple thing was. You all right? Coming to a perfectly controlled stop behind me. If this is not something you want to do or you ID, we can go back and just ride down the road. No, I was not going to let this go. Because he was happy. He was finally fucking happy in a way that I hadn't seen since he found out that I was a hunter. I was not going to take that away from him, even if it killed me. So I gripped my handlebars and I stood on the pedals like he told me to. And I allowed the bike to do the work. There were parts that came naturally. I could read the trails easily because I knew Mother Nature, how she liked to lay down her roots and draw her creeks. I could trust my core to balance me. I could squat my legs and hold my body at the precarious place that gave me control and stability. If I could balance on a tree limb in a blizzard, I could make it down this trail. I still squeezed the brakes when the speed got scary and I refused to even roll over anything that looked like it could remotely be a jump. I felt like I was going 1,000 kilometers per hour, even though I was sure I was hardly moving. There were brief moments when I enjoyed myself. Like really enjoyed myself and marveled at what my body could do when I gave it the chance. My arms were growing tired and my legs were exhausted from holding me in the same position. But I could hear the noise from the parking lot. Just one more berm. I watched it intently. A pinch of anxiety struck me, letting me think about how it would feel to fall. But I knew this. Not well, but I could do it. I willed my body to move. My hips should have dropped. I should have turned my bars. I didn't do either of those things. And when I willed my legs to pedal, they didn't do that either. Completely locked up, I flopped onto my side, hitting the soft dirt with a dull thump, and the time it took me to release my death grip on the handlebars and kick the bike off me. Ryder was there. "Oh, Georgia," he said, a half-panic sigh. "Are you hurt?" "No, I don't think so," I grunted, hoisting myself up onto my elbows. I had much worse run-ins during my time as a werewolf hunter. He grabbed my bike and righted it for me before extending a hand. "All right. Let's get you up and off the trail then. I don't want us getting run over." I reached out, almost surprised when my fingers curled around his wrist. It must have been the fear that stalled out my brain. Something like target fixation. He pulled me to my feet, grinning as I recovered and wiped the dirt off the butt of my leggings. "I haven't seen you this happy in a long time," I whispered, almost afraid to release the words into the air. "I haven't been this happy in a long time, George." The grin didn't stretch his lips so much anymore. Something heavy and thick settled onto his features, a seriousness that I wanted to brush away. Then, he said, "I love you." It was a shock to say the absolute least, and I definitely acted the part by standing there with my mouth open. gawking at him. Why here? Why when I was covered in dirt? I know that this has been confusing and messy, he continued. I think a lesser man would have looked away, wounded by my silence. But he plowed on. But I know what I'm feeling. I know what you make me feel. And maybe I shouldn't. But I do. When I think about coming home, I think about seeing you. Fuck. You're all I think about. My heart swelled. The body that had felt frozen just a moment ago was now completely responsive. My lips pulled back until I was utterly beaming. Loved. Isn't that all I ever wanted to be? Isn't that all I had been chasing? I love you. To the words were true. The feeling blooming in my ribs was proof of that. My smile was proof of that. The breathlessness in my chest was proof. But one truth was not greater than the other. I loved him. Because of him, I would be handing the sweetest girl I had ever met to the Werewolf Royals. Chapter 51. Ryder did ask me if I wanted to keep riding my bike, but we both knew the answer to that. I was sweaty and a little battered from my fall, and, despite the fact that he was being so accommodating of me, I saw the way he looked at other trailheads. Riding with him would only make me suffer more and prevent him from doing what he really wanted. I promised him I would be contented in the car by myself. I had downloaded a reading app at the hotel and had enough content to keep myself occupied for some time. Every now and then I would lift my head and see Ryder pedaling back up the road, see him exit the trees at light speed, grinning like mad the entire time. A couple times I spotted him stopped, leaned against the handlebars and chatting with a few people who were also riding bikes. I envied that easiness that he could just swing when he wanted to. I had never been that way. Would never be that way. I flicked through various stories from high fantasies with swirling dragons and dashing heroes to a country-themed romance. It felt like it was the first time I had been able to take a full breath in weeks and just fall apart. Maybe I shouldn't have been so satisfied with the whole situation. We were on our way to pick up Cassie after all, whether I liked it or not. I was now working in alliance with the Werewolf Royals. But he had said he loved me. The words had left his mouth and they had been true. I knew in my bones that they were, no matter what had been tearing us apart. No matter how differently we looked at the world. He loved me and I him. I let the bliss of the shared moment on the bike trails take me away for far longer than I realized. Soon, the sun was beginning to set along the hike peaks of the surrounding mountains. The weather that had been just above pleasantly warm was now becoming nippy. Just when I was beginning to get worried thinking that he might have suffered a fall or some kind of mechanical malfunction, I saw Ryder rocket down the side of the steep hill, moving just like those pro riders I had seen on television. That felt like years ago now, keeping my back to him, wishing so badly that things were different. Maybe the guilt should have been more prominent than the joy. But right then, it didn't seem to matter. I could wish that things were different. It was going to change what was right in front of me. I got out of the car, stretching my achy muscles. Sorry, Ryder said immediately. I lost track of time. I just kept thinking that I could squeeze one more in and now we're behind schedule. It's fine, I assured. We gave ourselves lots of time anyway. We can stay here another night and move on in the morning. That was all it took for him to launch into a wild tale, summarizing his day. He used lots of words I didn't know and gestured vividly with his hands, judging by the mud on his one hip and elbow. He had also taken quite the spill today. When I asked him about it, he rambled with great detail, stringing me along as if it was some kind of war story. It involved drops, rock slabs, and other things I didn't understand, but I listened and watched nonetheless. He took off his helmet and shook out his sweaty hair, not even missing a beat in his tale. Eventually, he realized that we were some of the last people in the parking lot and the kind folks at the rental shop wanted to go home, so he returned our bikes. I got back in the car, thinking that we would be on our way shortly. After a moment, I raised my head, catching movement in the rearview mirror. All of the other vehicles had left. The rental shop was closed up, and Ryder was walking away from the car, into the woods. He cast one glance over his shoulder, presumably to make sure I was in the car. Then he tugged his t-shirt over his head into the thick forest. I sat and waited for a little while, just to see if he would come back. I told myself that he was an adult and that he could go for strolls, shirtless ones even, if he wanted to. It was not my job to monitor this grown man. If anything, it was his job to keep an eye on me. Then I remembered where we were and who was around us. I darted out of the car as if it was made of molten lava then. I wouldn't run. I wouldn't scream his name. None of that. If he was out there and someone else was out there, I didn't want to bring attention to him. But I certainly wasn't walking like a normal human. My back to straighten my pace far too fast. I told myself that they wouldn't hunt out here. Of course, they wouldn't hunt out here. As well as the bike park being on this mountain. There was an abundance of hiking trails and it wasn't that far out of town. They wouldn't hunt here. They couldn't hunt here. But I wasn't in the game anymore. I didn't know what had changed since I had gone into the Royals' territory and come out the other side. They could be braver now. Bolder. They might not care who knew and who didn't. I spotted a small pile of clothing at the base of a tree. Ryder's clothes from this morning. Fuck. I knew as soon as that shirt had come off that he had gone into the forest to shift. But I had been hoping. God, I was a fool. Why hadn't I told him that we were in Hunter territory? Surely, I should have been smart enough to come up with a lie. I had already woven so many lies in our relationship. To him, to Cucko and Ajax, to Milo. What was one more? A shadow shifted on my right. A black blur among the trees. Had I not been trained for this, I would have thought it was a trick of the mind of maybe a crow flying above. But I used all of my senses, taking a deep breath to quiet my breathing, straining my ears until I heard the soft crack of a branch. And there was a wolf, staring right at me. Something that had been almost perfectly camouflaged now seemed to be outlined in bold. I had been hunting werewolves too long to have a pleasant response to seeing the claws in the fur. My fingers twitched, but I had no weapons I could draw. Silver eyes gazed at me. "What are you?" I asked aloud. He cocked his head to one side. It was wolfish, for sure, but the gesture was also Ryder. A softness swept over me. "Come here," I encouraged. "I want to look at you." He was before me in a matter of seconds. He must have been racing through the woods before because he was panting hard as he drew nearer. He circled me once, twice. He was something majestic that you only saw on the Nature Channel. So black it was almost uncomfortable to look at, like the mind couldn't process it. Then, silver eyes that gleamed like pure moonlight. His mouth would open and I would see teeth that could shred skin. I saw claws that dug into the earth beneath his paws. But I still saw Ryder, right there, as a wolf. "You could have just told me you needed to. Do this," I said. He let out a noise that sounded a lot like a snort. Maybe under other circumstances, I would have been resistant to it. Seeing him like this, it broke the fantasy. But here, in a place where the danger was very real, I would have been able to hold him off, at least for another day. Even still, I was grateful. Grateful that I could see this side of him and not recoil. Grateful that I could see pure and genuine love glowing in his eyes. Chapter 52. The evening should have been bliss. It had all the right elements. We went to a local restaurant. It was the kind of place that was just romantic enough with soft lighting, flickering candles on each table, and quiet music. The menu consisted of only ethically sorts and local option and drinks priced so high they would make a budgeter cringe. Ryder ordered himself a pop and I was foolish enough to order myself a cocktail initially. His fingers twitching on the table was all I needed to see before I changed out my drink for a mocktail. "You didn't have to do that," he whispered to me. "I have some self-control. Controlling my addiction needs to come from me, not outside sources. No. I did it because I wanted to." I assured and laid my hand over top of his on the live edge table. "You're my partner. What kind of person would I be if I didn't support you?" Our drinks were slurped down over bubbling conversation. I confessed that I had always wanted a pet but would feel terribly neglectful if I let it alone for long periods of time. The words felt awkward coming out of my mouth because they were no longer true. I wasn't a werewolf hunter anymore. In fact, I didn't really know what I was, and soon enough the perks would stop too. I had no money of my own, and keeping my parents in that care facility was costly. So was rent, and gas, and food, and clothes for job interviews. The realization brought on a headache that I couldn't shake for the rest of the night, no matter how delicious the food was or how wonderful the company was being. We made it back to the hotel in one piece, though I was in a fit of giggles over something Ryder had said. To be fair, it hadn't even been that funny, but it had caught me so off guard that once I started laughing, I couldn't stop. He had this way about him, like he was too stoic to crack a joke. When one finally came out, it was so awkward and bumbling it only made it funnier. Thankfully, this pleased Ryder more than it annoyed him. As soon as the door to our hotel room was shut behind us, he pulled me into his chest and gave me a kiss, gentle and slow, like he was trying to rediscover me. If I could have given him all that I was through that kiss, I would have. The tides between us shifted, pushing us together instead of pulling us apart. He let me pull his shirt off, and I vowed that I would spend the evening making the man feel treasured. I kissed Cars, tasted his warm skin, memorized the sound of his sighs. He was entirely magnificent, and he was all mine. He seemed determined to do the same, undressing me slowly and savoring every bit that was offered to him. I whispered his name into the darkened room over and over, encouraging him on. My hands and lips did their own racing. I held on to him tightly when he entered me. His pace was slow and deep, causing me to bow my back so beautifully. It was just enough to get me to the edge and keep me there, teetering without pushing me over. I could have been greedy, could have moved my hips. I slipped my fingers between my thighs. Instead, I hooked my legs over his hips and pulled him into me, slowing his pace further and pushing him just a little deeper. It was the right thing to do because Ryder let out a shuddering breath and lowered himself onto his elbows so he could kiss me endlessly. It could have been minutes, it could have been hours. As much as I wanted this moment to last forever, I couldn't fight the pull of our bond. In moments like this, it felt like it had more control over my body than I did. I hit my peak and melted beneath him, whispering breathy moans in his ear until his own climax came. My legs felt weak and boneless when I tried to release him. Ryder grinned down at me and pressed a tender kiss to my forehead before rolling off of me. The headache that had come around at supper still hadn't left and refused to even soften when Ryder pulled the sheets over us and tucked me up against his body. Still, I allowed myself to enjoy the warmth and the strength of his body. That comfort would be there in the morning as well. This should have been the start of something beautiful. This could have been the moment when we both gave in to the mate bond. Things would be hard, we would have to climb mountains to just have a normal relationship that was so easily handed to others. But they would be worth it, because Ryder would be there beside me and we'd offer each other an extended hand whenever the climb got too steep. That's how it should have been. But when I woke up, I knew something was wrong. My eyes were open, but I could not move. I couldn't prop myself up on my elbows. Couldn't reach above my head to stretch. Panic laced my blood. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. But it was the only physical response I could conjure up. I tried to turn my head. I could not. I attempted to open my mouth to scream. I suddenly couldn't feel my lips. Morning beautiful, Ryder whispered sleepily in my ear. I frantically tried to spew 1,000 words to him. Nothing came out of my mouth. If my fingers were moving or my toes were wiggling, I couldn't feel them. Ryder shifted beside me, propping himself up on his forearm. Mercury eyes gleamed down at me, still sleepy, but a contented smile pulled at his mouth. How did you sleep? I could only stare up at him. George, he said, the smile fading. I was wailing in my mind. I was screaming and thrashing. I was begging for help, but I was perfectly still on that mattress. Georgia, Ryder said. Then more frantically, Georgia, come on, talk to me. Silence filled the hotel room, heavy and thick. Georgia, please. Panic was in every word. I watched him move like he was about to grab my shoulders and shake me. Then he thought better of it. "Georgia, please talk to me. Please do something." But I couldn't. Ryder leapt off the bed as if I had scalded him. And though I couldn't turn my head to watch him, I could hear the breaths rattling his chest and the scream that left his mouth immediately after. Chapter 53. There was pacing and muttering for some time, back and forth along the length of the room. When he did come into view, I would see him raking his fingers through his dark hair, chewing on his nails, or just staring at me like, if he looked hard enough, all of this might just go away. "This can't be happening," he whispered at one point. "You were fine. Everything was fine. Nothing could happen because we're mated. You're my mate. I couldn't do this to you. I couldn't." I wanted to come for him. My heart that had been racing now ached for him. I wished I could have wrapped my arms around his neck and kissed his forehead until he gave out one of those big sighs and settled against me. But if I had been able to move at all, we wouldn't be in the position in the first place. "I thought you said this happened slowly," Ryder continued, his pacing resuming at a faster rate. "Fuck. I thought there would be warning signs. So had I. There had been with my parents. It all started so slowly. Day by day it had gotten worse. There was a visible regression. It was not like this. It was never supposed to be like this. I wished I had asked more questions when I had the chance. I wished that I had spent hours grilling everyone in the group, figuring out each individual story. I should have demanded to know just what this could look like, what it could do and how quickly. But it was too late. My mouth wouldn't from the words to say what I needed to. "We need to get you out of here. We need to get you away from me," Ryder blurted, his voice cracking. No, I didn't want to go. I didn't want to be away from him. In such a short time, he had become the smile I looked for, the eyes that knew me, being separated. Even the idea felt like an iron poker in between my ribs, but I couldn't tell him that either. "People are going to see if I carry you out the front. What would I even say to them?" He continued, "We need to use a back exit." There was a brief moment of internal deliberation before Ryder decided that getting me dressed for the day was worth the risk of proximity. He mumbled something about us being stuck in the car together and dug through my bag. I was wrapped up in a cozy hoodie and a pair of sweatpants. Ryder was trying to be gentle, but it was clear he had no experience with these things. I flopped around a lot. My body limp he didn't support me. The most control I had sometimes was contracting my muscles just a little bit to slow down the fall. I was a cooked noodle at worst and a slinky at best. "All right, George. Let's get you home," he murmured. Then I was hoisted into his arms. His voice cracked a little. When I had been a teenager, I had dreamed of a strong, handsome man carrying me, but it was not like this. Never like this. My head lolled backwards until he used his arm to prop me up. "Don't worry, Georgia. You're going to be fine." I might have believed him if I hadn't seen the tears in his eyes. All of our belongings were left in the hotel room aside from cell phones and wallets. Ryder propped me up in the passenger seat and buckled me in. When he pressed a kiss to my cheek, I felt the wetness of his tears, or maybe they were mine. I couldn't really tell. I didn't remember much of the drive. Ryder was quiet through most of it. I think there was never any music playing. Sometimes it felt like I was dreaming. Then I would blink and be back in the car. I didn't know where I went in those moments. Couldn't recall what I had seen. I only knew that my mind washed where it should have been. Occasionally, my hands were raised or I would have moved my legs, but it seemed that my body could only handle one or the other. I was either in control of my limbs or my mind. Movement seemed to put me in a dream state. Ryder said something to me. At the time, I hadn't been able to hear him above a dull warble in my ears. I briefly tried to fight it. I imagined myself moving, thought of my arms and hands listening to direction. I thought about speaking, getting the words out of my mouth, even when they felt stuck in my throat. I gritted my teeth, at least mentally, and tried to move. Nothing. Then I tried to speak. Nothing. I slipped back into my sleep almost immediately after. The car stopped. I saw a little house that I thought I knew. My house. No, not my house. Had I been to Ryder's house? No, then it dawned on me, Milo. Ryder was pounding on the door before Milo appeared. You have to help me. A blink later, they were by the car. How did this happen? Milo demanded as my unresponsive body was pulled out of the car. Even with a sluggish mind, I knew that I was in Ryder's arm. Knew my head was resting against his shoulder. I don't know. She woke up like this. Ryder lied. You don't know. Milo repeated. Please, just take her. I was thrust into Milo's arms. He thankfully accepted me with ease and gentleness, the kind of hands that had seen and dealt with Wolf Drain before. But his soft hold me was the opposite of what was carried in his tone. I'm going to ask you again, how did this happen? Ryder. She is off the team. She should be nowhere near werewolves. And now, she had severe wolf drain and you're looking at her like she's a leper. Milo, please, just take care of her, Ryder said, taking a single step back. I wanted to plead with him not to go. Wolf drain or not, Milo's arms didn't feel like his. Milo's voice didn't make my heart flutter. Milo was not the person I wanted to wake up next to. I was only half aware that I was carefully being set on the ground. My mate was leaving. Ryder was leaving me here. Then Milo whispered, I'm going to fucking kill you. My brain couldn't process who moved first. I was slumped forward and had to stare up through my eyelashes if I wanted to see anything. It was mostly a scuffle of feet. Gravel crunching. A groan from Milo. A curse from Ryder. The two of them ended up in the dirt. At first Ryder was the winning opponent, though his lip was already bleeding. He was larger than Milo by a few dozen pounds. Milo's training mostly involved being sneaky and not getting caught. Once any attack ensued, we usually didn't have much chance of winning. Ryder used his long, muscular arms to pin Milo's wrists down. Milo resorted to verbal attacks then. Poison in his spit. You knew what it would do to her. We talked about Wolf Drain in front of you. Milo accused. You did this to her. Milo bucked him off hard, then slammed a brutal fist into him over and over again. Ryder only half-heartedly lifted his arms to defend his face. I was screaming. I was wailing. I was begging. But nothing could make it past my lips. At least, I thought nothing made it past. Mate. The voice sounded like it was not my own. I couldn't feel my lips parting or my tongue forming the words. But there it was. Out in the open. Not just a figment of my imagination. Both men froze. Mate. Milo repeated. Ryder had the good sense to shove him off then, using my distraction against him. My mate propped himself up on his elbows. If I had any control of my body, anything beyond the single word that seemed to take everything out of me, I would have run to him. I would have fallen to my knees at his side and gasped over his swollen eye and reddening jaw. I would chase it all away, like it was nothing more than a terrible nightmare. We are mates. Ryder groaned, spitting out a wad of blood. I knew we were mated long before I knew she was a werewolf hunter. Long before I knew about Wolf Drain. But you knew and you stayed. You fucking stayed. Milo bellowed, looking like he was about to lunge at Ryder all over again. I didn't really have a choice. I could have left. She could have to. It wouldn't matter. Fate would bring us together. Over and over again. And if that didn't work, she would have gone into heat 1,000 times until we were reunited. It was enough to catch his attention. Milo looked a little less bloodthirsty now. I would tell you about it, but I think you're just going to want to punch me again. I don't want to punch you. I want to put you in a coffin. I was sure that he was lying, but it was a little comforting to see him straighten his shirt instead of going for Ryder's throat. Georgia and I wouldn't be able to stay away from each other no matter what. We thought that because we are mates that she wouldn't be able to get. Obviously, that's not very correct. Now is it? Milo seethed. No, it's not. Though we didn't know. We had already spent so much time together. She was captured by Keiko and Ajax. She was around werewolves for hours upon hours. Of course. We thought she was immune, Ryder explained, frantic. Wolf drain is one of the only reasons Georgia is still alive. Ajax and Keiko thought it would be easier to use Georgia to find someone with wolf drain. That's why you went after Cassie. You wanted to what? Do experiments on her. See what werewolves really do to humans. Guess what? You don't need Cassie anymore. Just bring them your wolf wife. Please. His voice shattered. Please. I need you to take care of her. I can't. I can't be around her. I'm scared that Shast's going to get worse. That it's going to be my fault. It is your fault. I can send you money. I can do everything else. Just please. Ryder wasn't able to get any more words out of his mouth. He scrambled to his feet like he had seen something horrific. A moment later, his car door slammed. The engine shifted. Then he was gone. Nothing more than a set of footprints and tire tracks in the dirt. And I was here. Without him, Milo was at my side. Oh Georgia, let's get you inside. Internally, I was screaming for Ryder to come back for me.